Tales from the Riverbank, Episode 6, The Dordogne, Fact or Fiction? There are more French people who live in England than English people who live in France. I read this on the internet, so I don't know if it's true, and as is often the case, I've got no way of checking. But in a way, it doesn't really matter if it's true or not. The point is, I choose to believe it, in the same way as I choose not to believe in poltergeists, the Conservative Party and aromatherapy. And importantly, the fact that there might not actually be as many French people in England as English people over here doesn't detract in any way from the usefulness of the statement to the contrary. And usefulness was the reason I shouted out my interesting demographic statistic to my colleague at work, the one who keeps going on about the English taking over the Dordogne every time he sees me. It was quite effective, my outburst. It left his invasion theory completely dead in the water. And as he is apparently only able to relate to me as a member of an Anglo-Saxon raiding party, he's not spoken to me since. A victory for the usefulness of unverifiable research findings and the art of presenting your opinions as facts. They call the valley of the Dordogne Little Britain. Little Britain. It's home to about 50,000 British passport holders, the vast majority of whom, I'm sure, came about their passports perfectly legally and are not on the run from the police. After all, this is the Dordogne we're talking about, not the Costa del Sol. So, if they're not escaping British justice, what are they all doing here? The reasons are as varied as the products on the Carrefour cheese counter. At this point, if we really wanted to know the truth, the correct thing to do would be to carry out a survey. But this would be expensive, time-consuming, and might interfere with my prejudices. So we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to continue with the opinion as a fact approach that works so well with my monomaniac colleague. The Dordogne is very pretty, and I know that sounds a bit fluffy carpet slippers, but it's true. The river is gently wet, the countryside pleasantly green, and the villages dotted along its banks agreeably picturesque. It's not a dramatic beauty, it's Kate Winslet rather than Kate Blanchett, but the overall impression aesthetically is genuinely satisfying. The climate is favourable, short, mild winters, a warmish spring and autumn, and long hot summers. A bit of rain, okay, but no snow, and plenty of opportunity to eat outside without your cardigan on. There are no sharks, no funnel spiders. There's an airport at Bergerac, a train line, and plenty of tarmac roads. There are schools for the kids and hospitals for the grandparents. There are banks, cinemas, and a laundrette if your washing machine's broken or you're stuck for entertainment. But none of these things, not really, bring the English here. Because with a largish outdoor heater in your back garden, you can get all of this in Maidenhead. So what is the big attraction then? Why is this stretch of waterway in southwest France a haven for the Britpack? I think the thing about the Dordogne is that it's England as it should be. Without the stress, without the press of people, with plenty of Lebensraum. You can swap your semi-detached in Crawley for a large house in the Dordogne with 7 bedrooms and a dove cottage, and possibly a turret. You can trade in your low-maintenance patio garden for 12 acres of meadow with a stream and a couple of oast houses. In the Dordogne, you can go out and have the best meal of your life every night, then come home and watch Sky. You can leave the kids with the neighbours. You can chat with the man in the corner shop and go to the pub after the cricket. It's perfect. It's England as it should be. It's not, though, England as it used to be. It's not the safe, deferent and respectful England that people like to remember. That England has never existed. I know this for a fact, not because I looked it up on the internet, but because I asked my mother, and she told me. My grandmother used to leave her door unlocked because my mother's family didn't have anything to steal, not because she trusted the neighbours. My mother used to run around naked in the street with the other children out of a sense of poverty, not out of a sense of community. It wasn't idyllic, it was desperate. It was lice, diphtheria, and no fresh vegetables. The Dordogne is much more a contemporary English construct than a trip back in time to the 1950s. Its source lays somewhere in the present-day home counties. It flows with modern English middle-class aspirations about quality of life and about how the world should be. Consequently, what annoys my broken record colleague during his frequent "lock up your daughters, the English are coming" tirades is his belief that the English people who live here don't come to France to integrate. They're happy to swallow the occasional steak frite, but not the French vision that comes with it. They have their own Weltanschauung, thank you very much. They don't come to blend in with the landscape, they come to restyle it. And what's more, because they don't really trust the local workforce, they're doing it with their own army of builders and hairdressers and chip van drivers, creating a closed economic circle. This upsets my colleague. For him, the Dordogne is now something in between a kibbutz and Henley. And often moved to extrapolate from the particular, my colleague also seems to think that this is evidence that France in general is rapidly turning into some kind of theme park, where the visitors are taking over the rides and the indigenous population are reduced to dressing up as French waiters. I think my colleague is overreacting. It's not really like that. I know because, tired of the internet and asking my mother for information, I went to have a look myself, to collect some of that all-important primary data. And I'm happy to report that there are no gates and no passport control as you enter the valley of the Dordogne. There are no signs in English saying French trespassers will be prosecuted. What I saw over lunch in Sainte-Foy-la-Grande was the restaurant owner sharing a plate of chips with two English regulars and chatting away happily in French. And say what you like about representative sampling, that, as far as I'm concerned, is conclusive empirical proof of integration. I suspect what might be at the heart of my colleague's disquiet at the Anglicisation of the Dordogne is insecurity. The enduring faith in the greatness of this country and what it represents has taken a bit of a beating recently. Like many French people, it seems to me my colleague is beginning to see examples of impending collapse. Multiculturalism is undermining French national identity. The French social model isn't delivering as it should do. The economy is underperforming, unemployment is up, spending power is down. Globalization, the Anglo-Saxon financial conspiracy, is undermining a caring, paternalistic French industry. Cheap overseas products are flooding the market and factories are closing down and heading for Guangzhou. Man the lifeboats, France is under attack. Fueled by politicians and the media, this is the general insecurity that pervades our staff room conversation. It's a dangerous thing. It encourages us to obscure the facts, to look to shift the blame, to choose leaders who promise security by getting tough and closing borders. And while encouraging a climate of insecurity might be useful in generating votes, it's ultimately divisive. It's better to believe that things improve when people trust and don't blame each other. It's better to believe in competing or complementary truths and not in a single all-encompassing explanation. Values are different, not superior. It's better to believe that the thousands of French people who are working in banks and hotels in London, or teaching or running their own catering business, or playing the guitar in Finsbury Park Tube Station are benefiting themselves and their adopted city. It's better to believe that the Dordogne has been reinvigorated and not reinvented by the English. Quite simply, that it's a very nice place to build a life, wherever you come from, whatever your values are. These are opinions, not facts. I believe them. And so does my colleague, really. He just has trouble choosing to believe them out loud, that's all. Maybe I should invite him for lunch. Clear the air a bit. There's a great fish and chip shop in Bergerac. We could go there. I think they take euros.